Hello everyone and welcome to my desk. My name is Katelin Urgo and I am a 23-year-old writer living in Los Angeles. Today I'm going to be talking about how I manage some of the logistics of writing a book. My last two videos, which were a Q&A as well as an update on the book that I am currently publishing, are available for you to go watch right now. Alright, let's get started. I mentioned in a TikTok, if you don't follow me on TikTok, you should go do that. I mentioned in a TikTok that I choose to write everything digitally, and that includes any notes that I have on the story, any research I have, any character profiles, setting profiles, all of that happens on my computer. I don't write anything down on actual paper, and there's a few reasons for that. The first reason is that I would rather not have to keep track of a notebook or multiple sheets of paper that have important notes that I need for my story on them. I found that having all of your notes and research in the same place that you're doing your writing is so helpful to be able to just click and look and find what you need, Command F, and you are good. The second reason that I choose to write digitally is because I find that it's just more work when you write something down on actual paper and then you just have to retype it into the computer. I would rather be able to copy and paste whatever it is that I need and have it instant. And so that is why I've chosen to write everything digitally. Now, in terms of what program I choose to write with, I should preface this by saying that you can write using whatever you please. If that's Google Docs, if that's Word, if that's a writing processor like what I use, you can use anything, and you don't need any fancy program to write a book. And if you want to write a book in an entire notebook, you can go ahead and do that too. I choose to write with a program called Scrivener, and you do have to pay for this program. I am a participant of NaNoWriMo, which means that I was able to use one of their discount codes to get a good chunk of money off when I got the processor, and when you purchase it, you have it forever. So it's nice. It's just a one-time thing. It's not a monthly subscription or anything like that. Just a reminder that I love Scrivener, but I know that there's probably many authors out there who do not love Scrivener, so I'm going to tell you why it works for me. As I mentioned, I do everything digitally, and I like to have everything that I write in one place, including all my notes, including research. So Scrivener does a really great job of keeping everything in one solid place. Where you would normally have to have maybe multiple documents in Word, you can just have multiple different pages in this processor and it's all still in one place. They call this using the binder tool. In your binder, you are able to have multiple different folders, multiple different pieces of text. You can have as many as you like and you can load it up. It's so easy to click and find exactly what you're looking for in the binder without having to shuffle through multiple documents. Next, let's talk about outlining. So I have mentioned in previous videos that I do not do very much planning when it comes to writing a book. I kind of just start writing and see where it takes me, which is not the best sometimes, but it's how I write. So there's not really a need for me to sit down and do any in-depth outlining. However, the times when I have needed to do that, for let's say the book that I just finished writing, the last few chapters were really crucial that I had it nailed down exactly how I wanted it. So what I did was I went onto Scrivener's corkboard view and I was able to add in a quick little synopsis and say I need A, B, and C to happen in this chapter because I can look ahead and see that in the next chapter I need X, Y, Z to happen. And this made it so much easier to visualize, and that's the thing. When I'm writing a story, I'm a huge visual person. I mean mood boards, I mean maps, I mean all of that. I want to be able to see it laid out in front of me. And Scrivener does a really great job of doing that. And you can see your entire book laid out into these little index cards on your computer. And it's very helpful if you're that kind of way. When it comes to juggling specific scenes and chapters, I am really big on having everything broken down as much as I can. So I will have a chapter as the folder, and then I will have different text documents in that folder that are the different scenes, and that way it's all broken up really clean, and it makes it so much easier to go back and find exactly what you're looking for instead of scrolling endlessly through an entire chapter. You're able to say, okay, chapter 2, scene 3, and you can just go straight to it. If you were to look up what the standard chapter word count is in a novel, I'm pretty sure it's anywhere between like 1,000 words and 5,000 words, which is such a crazy drastic difference in chapters. I think it's cool though, because you as the author get to decide at what pace your story moves. Maybe you're choosing to have your chapters only be around 1,000 or 1,500 words, and that way the reader is going to move right along through your story. When I write, I try and keep my chapters anywhere between 2,500 words to 3,500 words. And of course this varies. Some chapters I'm gonna reach 4,000, some chapters maybe a lot less. However, as a baseline, I like to keep it around 2,500 to 3,500 words. And I do this because I like to keep my pace kind of moving quick, but also my story is really, you know, it's a lot of mystery happening, and so I want enough time to be able to fully explain what's happening in each chapter and make sure that I get all of my thoughts in that one place. In terms of how I name my chapters, I think this is very author specific, and even more, it's very book specific. I, for this last book that I wrote, have chosen to not name any of my chapters except for a few key ones. And I've chosen to do this purely because I want the reader to understand that when they get to a chapter with a name, that they're not going to be in the present time. It was just kind of a stylistic choice that I made. I'm also not married to that choice, so I could change it as time goes on, but I really like how it turned out, and when I had some beta readers take over, they said that they really enjoyed that because they knew that if a chapter with a name was coming up, that it was going to be a big chapter. I don't think that there's anything wrong with not naming your chapters, and on the flip side, I don't think there's anything wrong with naming your chapters. It truly is a specific choice that you as the author get to make, and I think that's half the fun of it. Let's talk about research. I love doing research, as I'm sure most authors also love doing research, because it's time that we aren't writing. Especially if you are kind of dragging on getting started, or you've hit kind of a rough spot. You always say, you know what, I'm just gonna do some more research. You know, it's like I'm writing, but not really. Some of the big research that I had to do on my latest book was all about time periods, you know, because the world that my main character travels back to is definitely not set in the modern time. So I had to do a ton of research on how people lived before there was electricity and all of that good stuff. And I think it's very important to make sure that you do have a healthy balance of research before you start writing, but also, you know, that you can research as you go, and things may change the more that you work. And you know, I think to do hours and hours and hours of research before you even start writing might be a little tricky, because, you know, your story can end up going in a different direction, and now you're just left with a bunch of research that isn't going to be touched or useful. I think included in the research section are profiles for characters or setting. And this is something that I think is important, especially for authors who are just getting started, which kind of includes myself here, is that, you know, look at your main characters and create a profile for them. There are tons of character profile templates out on the internet, and you can just pick one and take some time to really get in the head of your character and fill it out. It could just be appearance-based, you know, what do they look like on the outside, but a lot of times what you really want to focus on is what is their personality like? What are the little things about them that make them who they are, but that the reader may never know? If your character hates dogs and is terribly afraid of them, and then goes to a location where they're suddenly surrounded by dogs, how are they going to react to that, you know? Maybe it's not explicitly told to the reader that, you know, your character hates dogs, but you know as the writer, hey, my character doesn't like dogs, so they're in this situation, so they're going to be uncomfortable, and that the way they act and the way they respond to things is going to be from a really anxious place. And that can show through your writing, but you never have to say that your character doesn't like dogs. Something to think about. I absolutely love also doing setting profiles or scene profiles, and I love to get down every single detail of where my characters are physically going to be, and, you know, really getting into the nitty-gritty of what color are the walls, and do the floors squeak when you step on them, and what smells are coming from the room. You know, I love all of those little details, and it's absolutely important to include that in the writing. So to tie this all back to why I love using Scrivener, that is because all of the research that I do, all of the profiles that I make, everything is in one single place. In my binder, I will have an entire folder dedicated to profiles. I'll have an entire folder dedicated to any research that I come across that I'd like to quickly reference during my writing, so I'm not constantly having to re-look it up. I have family trees. I have any kind of photos that really spark something with my writing. I'll save those into my Scrivener document as well. If I'm going through my story and I'm editing a specific chapter and I decide that I don't like a specific scene or I'd like to cut it, I can just cut it out of the main document, put it into a separate folder, and I've titled that folder Cut Scenes. Really creative. And it allows me to then go back, and if I ever decide that I'd like to put that scene back or I'd like to put it somewhere else in the manuscript, I can quickly copy and paste it and put it exactly where I want. I don't have to delete it and then lose it forever. I have a specific folder for any notes that I can think of while I'm writing. If I come up with an idea while I'm writing, but I know that it's something that I don't need to address right away, I can put it into my notes folder, and then it'll be there for when I'm ready to look at it and write that scene or whatever that may be. If I need to write a couple drafts of a specific chapter, for instance, my prologue. The prologue for this novel that I just finished writing took me multiple tries to get it to be exactly where I wanted it to be. So I have multiple documents of every version that I've written, and it's all saved into a separate folder, but none of that has to appear in my main manuscript. So it's just such an easy way to keep everything clean and organized, and I think we all know that as writers, it's important to keep all of your writing in one place where it's easily accessible and you're able to find things with ease. My favorite thing about Scrivener, I will say, is the compile tool, and that is a special button that allows you to click compile, and after that, Scrivener will then take all of the text documents in your manuscript and make them into a beautiful Word document that is already formatted for you exactly how it needs to be. We all know how long it can take to format. You spend hours just formatting things and making sure it looks exactly how you want it to look, but Scrivener does that all for you. It is truly the best thing, and every cent that I spent on Scrivener is worth it because it compiles for me, and I love that. That's just something that I look for as a writer. So those are just some of the logistics of my writing. If you have any questions about the logistics of how I write or why I've chosen to write with Scrivener, then please feel free to ask and I will of course get back to you. If you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and like it. If you would like to see more content from me, then you can go ahead and subscribe. Next Wednesday's video will be talking all about fan fiction and what I used to write, what I used to read, and what I currently read, and just discussing the fanfiction community in general, as well as probably debunking some stereotypes. So if you're interested in that, then stay tuned. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day. Now go write something. Actual live footage of me trying to figure my shit out. And I need my coffee.